The story begins with a young boy named Hiccup, who lived in a village called Burke, located in the middle of the sea. Burke was constantly under attack by dragons, but unlike most people, the villagers weren't afraid of dragons. They were Viking, fierce warriors who fought them every chance they got. Hiccup was the son of the Viking chief Stoke, and he dreamed of becoming a dragon slayer, just like everyone else, but no one believed he could do it. He wasn't big, strong, or intimidating like the other Vikings, so most people thought he'd end up becoming a dragon's prey rather than a dragon hunter. Hiccup spent much of his time building weapons with the village blacksmith, Gobber. One day, he noticed everyone in the village working together to defend their homes from the dragon attacks. Wanting to prove himself, Hiccup grabbed a special device he had built and rushed outside to help. His target was the most feared dragon of all, the Night Fury. The Night Fury was considered the deadliest dragon in existence. It could fly faster than lightning and was so quick that almost nobody had ever seen one clearly. Using only a rough guess, Hiccup fired his launcher into the darkness. To his surprise, he saw something fall from the sky. He was thrilled. But there was one problem. Nobody else saw it happen. Before he could celebrate, another dragon attacked him. Hiccup tried to escape, but just in time, his father Stoic arrived and drove the dragon away. Unfortunately, while saving Hiccup, Stoic lost the dragons he had already captured. That made him furious. Stoic dragged Hiccup back and demanded an explanation. Hiccup excitedly told everyone that he had actually hit a Night Fury and that it had crashed somewhere nearby. He insisted they should go look for it, but nobody believed him. After all, even the greatest Viking warriors had never managed to bring down a Night Fury. Why would anyone believe that Hiccup had done it? Even Stoic dismissed the story and remained angry with him. Feeling defeated, Hiccup headed home while the other kids mocked him and laughed at his claim. Meanwhile, Stoic gathered the villagers and announced that they needed to find the dragon's nest and destroy it once and for all. He believed that if they destroyed the source of the attacks, the dragons would never threaten Burke again. The mission was extremely dangerous, and at first nobody wanted to go, but Stoic challenged their pride. He declared that anyone unwilling to join would be a coward. His words fired everyone up, and soon the entire village agreed to follow him. Later, Stoic spoke privately with Gobber. He admitted that he had no idea what to do with Hiccup. The boy wasn't strong, he couldn't fight dragons, and he didn't seem like a Viking warrior at all. Gobber thought for a moment, and then said, "You should let him train with the others. You may not be able to stop him from going out on his own someday, but you can prepare him for it. Whether it's today or years from now, Hiccup will eventually leave the village by himself. When that day comes, training might be the only thing that keeps him alive." Stoic reluctantly agreed. Meanwhile, Hiccup left the village and headed deep into the woods, determined to find the Night Fury he had shot down. After following a trail of broken trees, he finally found it. The dragon was trapped and unable to escape. For a moment, Hiccup believed this was his chance. He pulled out his knife and approached the dragon, fully intending to kill it. But as he got closer, he noticed something unexpected. The Night Fury wasn't acting like a monster. It looked terrified, scared, vulnerable. Hiccup hesitated, and in that moment, he realized he couldn't do it. Instead of killing the dragon, he cut the ropes and set it free. The second the Night Fury escaped, it lunged toward him. Hiccup froze, convinced he was about to die. But the dragon stopped. Just like Hiccup had spared its life, it chose to spare his. Then it turned and disappeared into the forest. As the dragon flew away, Hiccup noticed something strange. The Night Fury couldn't fly properly. It struggled to stay in the air, but Hiccup had no idea why. Later, when he returned home, Stoic informed him that from now on, he would begin dragon training. But after what had happened in the woods, Hiccup no longer wanted to fight dragons. He had learned something important. He simply couldn't bring himself to kill one. Unfortunately, Stoic refused to listen. He shoved an axe into Hiccup's hands and ordered him to start training. The next day, Hiccup joined the other Viking teens, Toughnut, Roughnut, Fishlegs, Snotlout, and Astrid, for their first lesson. The training didn't go well. When a dragon attacked him, Hiccup completely froze and couldn't defend himself. At the last second, Gobber stepped in and saved him. Then he gave the class a simple lesson. A dragon will always kill its prey whenever it gets the chance. Everyone accepted that as a fact. Everyone except Hiccup, because one question kept running through his mind. If dragons always kill humans, then why didn't the Night Fury kill me? The very next day, Hiccup returned to the forest to see the Night Fury again. The dragon was still there. Hiccup sketched it in his notebook and decided to call it Toothless. After that, he headed back to dragon training, where Gobber gave him a book containing information about every known dragon species. However, there was almost nothing written about the Night Fury. No one had ever really studied one before, because before Hiccup, nobody had managed to get close enough to even see it properly. Meanwhile, Stoke and his crew set off once again in search of the dragon's nest. The next day, Hiccup returned to training, but just like before, he couldn't bring himself to fight a dragon. After training, he visited Toothless and brought him a fish. But instead of eating it right away, Toothless gestured for Hiccup to throw away his knife. Once Hiccup tossed the blade aside, Toothless finally accepted the fish. Then something unexpected happened. After eating half of it, Toothless offered the rest to Hiccup. Hiccup reluctantly took a bite. That simple moment changed everything. Toothless finally trusted him. He realized Hiccup wasn't a threat. The dragon moved a short distance away and sat down. Hiccup carefully approached, trying to touch him, but Toothless wouldn't allow it at first. Instead, he playfully circled around him. Slowly but surely, the two began to bond. And eventually, Hiccup finally reached out and touched Toothless for the very first time. The next day during training, Gobber taught the class an important lesson. He explained that if you damage a dragon's tail or wings, it can no longer fly. And according to Viking warriors, a dragon that can't fly is as good as dead. The moment Hiccup heard that, everything clicked. He realized why Toothless couldn't fly. One of his tail fins had been destroyed when Hiccup shot him down. Feeling guilty, Hiccup spent the entire night designing a replacement tail fin. The following day, he brought more fish for Toothless and carefully attached the new tail piece. As soon as it was in place, Toothless took off like a rocket. Hiccup was still hanging on to him when the dragon shot into the sky. But the new tail wasn't working perfectly yet. The fin suddenly shifted, causing Toothless to lose control and crash back to the ground. Determined to fix the problem, Hiccup built a special saddle so he could ride Toothless and help control the tail fin himself. As they spent more time together, Hiccup learned all kinds of things about dragons. One discovery was that dragons were allergic to certain types of grass. The next day during training, he used that knowledge against a dragon, causing it to become completely disoriented. Everyone was amazed. For the first time, Hiccup successfully defeated a dragon without hurting it. From that moment on, people started treating him differently. He was no longer the village joke. He was becoming a hero. Later, while spending time with Toothless, Hiccup accidentally discovered something else. When he scratched a certain spot under the dragon's neck, Toothless became completely relaxed and nearly passed out. Hiccup immediately added that observation to his growing list of dragon secrets. The next day, he used that trick during training and easily calmed another dragon down. Now everyone was impressed. Students who once laughed at him suddenly wanted to be around him all the time. Astrid, however, wasn't happy about it. She worked harder than anyone else, yet somehow Hiccup kept outperforming everyone. Meanwhile, Hiccup continued improving Toothless's artificial tail. Eventually, he redesigned it so it could be controlled with a foot pedal, almost like shifting gears on a bike. One night, Hiccup secretly brought Toothless close to his house, but Astrid had become suspicious. She decided to follow him and find out what he was hiding. Before she could discover anything, Toothless grabbed Hiccup and quickly escaped through the back entrance. At the same time, Stoic and the Viking fleet finally returned from their expedition. They were exhausted and disappointed. They had failed to locate the dragon's nest. The entire mission had been a disaster. Feeling frustrated, Stoic asked Gobber how Hiccup's training was going. Gobber couldn't stop smiling. He told Stoic that Hiccup was doing incredibly well. Everywhere he went, people surrounded him because he had managed to defeat every dragon he faced. Although Stoic was still upset about the failed mission, hearing about Hiccup's success instantly lifted his spirits. Elsewhere, Hiccup continued testing Toothless's upgraded tail fin. This time, the design worked far better than before. Toothless soared through the skies with incredible speed and precision. Suddenly, he climbed higher and higher into the clouds. The rapid climb caused Hiccup to lose his grip and fall off. Without Hiccup controlling the pedal system, the artificial tail stopped functioning. Now both of them were plummeting toward the ground. At the last second, Hiccup gathered his courage, climbed back onto Toothless, regained control of the tail fin, and safely guided them down. After landing, several baby dragons appeared and tried to steal Toothless's fish. Toothless chased them away. Seeing this, Hiccup tossed one of the smaller dragons a fish of its own. The little dragon happily ate it, and then curled up beside Hiccup and fell asleep. That moment completely changed Hiccup's understanding of dragons. Everything he had been taught was wrong. Dragons weren't ruthless monsters. They weren't born to hate humans. In reality, they could be gentle, gentle, loyal, and even affectionate. Later, Hiccup returned home. There, he found Stoke waiting for him. As soon as Hiccup saw his father, he quickly tried to hide the papers scattered across his table. Those papers were filled with notes and sketches about Toothless. Stoke noticed his nervous behavior and jokingly said, "You've been keeping secrets from me. Did you really think I'd never find out?" Hiccup immediately panicked. He thought his father had discovered everything about Toothless. Trying to defend himself, he quickly replied, "I wasn't hiding anything," but Stoke suddenly laughed. "For years, you've convinced me that you couldn't be a Viking. I honestly thought you'd never fit in. But after what I've learned today, I've never been prouder of you." Then Stoke handed Hiccup something very special, his mother's old helmet. The next morning, Hiccup arrived at the training arena for another dragon challenge. Before the match began, Astrid walked over and told him, "Stay out of my way today. I'm going to take this dragon down myself." She hid nearby, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But before she could make her move, Hiccup used one of the techniques he had learned from Toothless and quickly brought the dragon under control. The crowd erupted in cheers. Everyone was impressed. Everyone except Astrid. Frustrated and embarrassed, she stormed toward Hiccup and tried to start a fight. One of the village elders pointed toward Hiccup. That gesture meant something important. The next day, Hiccup would be given the honor of facing and killing his very first dragon. For a Viking, it was one of the greatest achievements possible. But instead of feeling proud, Hiccup felt miserable. He didn't want to kill a dragon, not anymore. Later that day, Hiccup packed his belongings and headed to Toothless. He was considering running away with his dragon friend before it was too late, but someone had secretly followed him, Astrid. When she appeared, Hiccup was shocked. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to find out what's really going on. Nobody learns to control dragons this fast. I think someone's been helping you." At that moment, Toothless noticed Astrid pushing Hiccup around. Thinking she was hurting his friend, Toothless immediately lunged toward her. Fortunately, Hiccup managed to stop him, but Astrid turned and tried to run back to the village. She wanted to tell everyone about the dragon. Before she could escape, Toothless grabbed her and carried her away. He even left her hanging from a tree branch for a moment, clearly trying to scare her. Hiccup looked up and said, "I need to show you something." Astrid rolled her eyes. "I don't want to hear another word from you." Hiccup sighed. "Fine, I won't talk, but you need to see this." Curious, Astrid reluctantly agreed. Soon she found herself sitting behind Hiccup on Toothless's back. Hiccup told Toothless to take it easy, but Toothless was still annoyed with Astrid, so he deliberately blasted into the sky at full speed. Astrid screamed in terror. Okay, I'm sorry. I was wrong." The moment she admitted it, Toothless slowed down. As the flight became smoother, her fear slowly disappeared. Before long, she was actually enjoying the ride. Flying through the clouds was unlike anything she had ever experienced. For the first time, she began to understand what Hiccup saw in dragons. The two of them grew much closer during that flight. At one point, Astrid asked, "Tomorrow you're supposed to kill a dragon. What are you going to do?" Toothless overheard the conversation. Suddenly, he changed direction and flew away at high speed. A short time later, they spotted dozens of dragons carrying food. The dragons were all flying toward the same destination. Hiccup and Astrid were terrified. At first, they thought they had become prey just like everyone else, but that wasn't the case. Toothless was taking them somewhere important. He led them straight to the dragon's nest. Inside the enormous cavern, they watched as dragon after dragon dropped food into a massive pit. Then something terrifying emerged from the darkness. A gigantic dragon rose from the depths. The creature was so enormous that even the other dragons were afraid of it. The moment it noticed Toothless flying alongside two humans, it roared and attacked. Toothless reacted instantly. He grabbed Hiccup and Astrid and escaped before the giant dragon could reach them. After they got away, Astrid looked at Hiccup and said, "We found it. We found the dragon's nest. Your father has been searching for this place his entire life. We have to tell him." But Hiccup shook his head. "If my dad finds out about Toothless, he'll kill him. We need to be careful." After everything she had seen, Astrid finally understood. She agreed to keep the secret. Then, before leaving, she surprised Hiccup with a kiss. The next day was the big event. The entire village gathered at the arena. Stock couldn't have been prouder. For the first time, he believed his son was finally becoming a true Viking. But Hiccup felt completely different. He had no intention of killing a dragon. When the dragon was released into the arena, everyone expected a battle. Instead, Hiccup dropped his weapon. Then he slowly approached the dragon and tried to earn its trust. The crowd was stunned. Stoic was furious. He slammed his hammer down and ordered the fight to stop. The loud noise startled the dragon. Suddenly, the dragon became aggressive and charged toward Hiccup. Far away, Toothless sensed that Hiccup was in danger. He immediately broke free and raced toward the arena. At the same time, Astrid desperately tried to help Hiccup. The dragon eventually grabbed him, but just before it could hurt him, Toothless burst into the arena and drove the dragon away. Everyone was shocked. Toothless had come to save Hiccup, but Stoke didn't see it that way. Believing Toothless was a threat, he attacked him. Toothless quickly overpowered Stoke and pinned him down. For a moment, it looked like the dragon might strike back, but Hiccup shouted for him to stop. Toothless listened immediately and released Stoke. Unfortunately, the villagers took advantage of the distraction. Together, they managed to capture Toothless. Hiccup begged them to listen. He tried to explain that dragons weren't the monsters everyone believed they were, but nobody wanted to hear it. The villagers only saw a dangerous beast. Afterward, Stoke turned to Hiccup, angry and disappointed. "You lied to me. I should have known something was wrong. You can punish me if you want, but please let Toothless go. He came here to save my life. I know dragons have killed many of our people, but we've killed thousands of dragons too. They're not attacking us because they're evil. They're just trying to survive. If they don't bring food back to their leader, that giant dragon will kill them." Hearing this, Stoke pauses for a moment and asks, "You've seen the dragon's nest? Then tell me where it is." Hiccup shakes his head. "I don't know the way. Toothless was the one who took me there." The moment Stuck hears that, he makes a decision. If Toothless knows where the nest is, then they'll use him to find it. Hiccup desperately tries to stop his father. "You don't understand. You can't defeat that dragon." But Stoke refuses to listen. He knocks Hiccup to the ground and angrily says, "You've chosen their side. You're not acting like a Viking, and right now, you don't feel like my son." Soon afterward, Stoke and the Vikings prepare their ships for war. They chain Toothless to one of the ships and force him to lead them to the dragon's nest. Meanwhile, Astrid turns to Hiccup and says, "We have to help Toothless." Realizing she's right, Hiccup gathers all of his friends. Then he reveals everything he has learned about dragons and teaches them how to ride them. Back at sea, Toothless unwillingly guides the Viking fleet toward the nest. Before long, they arrive at the massive dragon cavern. The Vikings immediately begin attacking it. Suddenly, countless dragons burst out of the cave and fly away. At first, everyone celebrates. They think they've won, but then the mountain starts shaking. A gigantic dragon emerges from deep inside the nest, the same monstrous creature Hiccup and Astrid had seen before. The Vikings immediately attack it, but the giant dragon unleashes an enormous blast of fire, destroying ship after ship. One of those ships is carrying Toothless. As flames spread everywhere, Stuck and Gobber work together to distract the beast so their warriors can escape. Just then, Hiccup arrives with Astrid and the others, all riding dragons. Seeing his son soaring through the sky on a dragon, Stuck is stunned. For the first time, he truly understands what Hiccup has been trying to tell him all along. Hiccup's friends keep the giant dragon busy by provoking it and forcing it to waste its strength. Meanwhile, Hiccup races toward the burning ship to save Toothless. He reaches the wreckage and begins unlocking the chains, but before he can finish, the ship collapses. Toothless sinks beneath the water. Without hesitation, Hiccup dives in after him. He struggles to free the chains, but can't do it alone. Then Stoke jumps into the water. He pulls Hiccup to safety and dives back down. Moments later, he breaks Toothless free and rescues him as well. Looking at his son, Stoic says, "I'm sorry for everything, but from now on, you don't have to risk your life anymore." Hiccup smiles and replies, "We're Vikings. Taking risks is kind of what we do," and flies back into the battle. Along the way, he manages to save Astrid too. The giant dragon is eventually forced into the sky by Toothless's relentless attacks. Soon, they're flying high above the clouds. Because of the thick smoke and clouds, the giant dragon can't see Toothless clearly. Hiccup uses that advantage to launch surprise attacks from different directions. Enraged, the giant dragon begins blasting fire everywhere. One of those attacks hits Toothless's artificial tail fin, the very one Hiccup built for him. The tail fin catches fire and starts burning apart. Without full control, Toothless begins falling from the sky. At the same time, the giant dragon charges up a massive energy blast inside its mouth. Seeing what is about to happen, Toothless fires a perfectly timed blast straight into the creature's mouth. The attack ignites the energy inside. A massive explosion erupts from within the giant dragon. Flames spread through its entire body, and the enormous beast is finally defeated. But the battle isn't over yet. Toothless's damaged tail fin completely burns away. Now both Hiccup and Toothless are falling through the flames. When the fire finally clears, thick smoke covers everything. Stork desperately searches for his son. Soon the entire village gathers around Toothless, but Hiccup is nowhere to be seen. For a heartbreaking moment, everyone fears the worst. Then Toothless slowly spreads his wings. Hidden safely beneath them is Hiccup, alive. The crowd erupts with relief and joy. Stork rushes forward and hugs his son. Then he looks at Toothless and sincerely thanks him for saving Hiccup's life. Later, Hiccup wakes up in his bed. The first thing he sees is Toothless sitting beside him. Immediately, a smile appears on his face, but when he tries to get up, he notices something surprising. He has lost part of his leg during the battle. In its place is a new metal prosthetic leg. A short time later, Hiccup walks outside, and what he sees changes everything. The village has completely transformed. Instead of fighting dragons, the Vikings are now living alongside them. Children are playing with dragons, villagers are feeding them, and dragons are helping with everyday tasks around Berk. Stoic proudly explains, "We're done fighting dragons. From now on, we live together." Gobber then presents Hiccup with a new tail fin for Toothless as a gift. With the replacement attached, Toothless is finally able to fly properly again. A moment later, Astrid walks over and kisses Hiccup. Then she joins him on Toothless's back. Together, they take off into the sky. And for the first time in Berk's history, Vikings and dragons fly side by side as friends.